Hello.
Very nice to meet you, Ty.
Nice to meet you.
Congrats on Possession.
Thank you.
How's it feeling having that out in the world now?
I'm like a ways away from it now, so yeah, good. I'm kind of just it's not like I've moved on from it, but I tend to not really, get stuck in one record cycle or something like that. So, yeah, it feels good.
I'm not surprised to hear you say that. I mean, you're extremely prolific, and you've had 17 studio albums now, along with a heap of live cuts and EPs. How's your creative approach evolved since you first started making music?
I'm less just like throw stuff at the walls and see if it sticks kind of now. The only real constant thing for me is kind of always trying to think of a different thing to do, or it's always usually reactionary to the last thing I've done. So, I get bored doing the same thing. So I hope things have gotten better. I don't know. But yeah, just trying new stuff out.
That certainly appears to be the consensus that your stuff just gets better and better. To build on your point about it being a reaction to your earlier work, it's still, this new record has kept that casual sensibility of a lot of your early garage work, but thematically seems quite deliberately of its time, particularly with tracks like Buildings and Shoplifter. What's inspired you to take this particular direction on this album?
Well, I collaborated with my friend Matt Yoka on the lyrics. And we just kind of wanted to write an American album that was simultaneously modern and a bit, I don't want to use the word timeless because that's like a pretty hefty word, but, also could be put into different places in American history. Shoplifter is like one of the, pretty blatantly modern tunes, but there's other ones that, you could have a modern twist on it, like Possession, or that one's about the Salem witch trials. So it's nice to have kind of a dual meaning or many, many meanings to, a song. So it's cool to have that be kind of the goal with Matt and to just see where songs would kind of end up, what we wanted to say, if we wanted to leave some things a little bit more, you know, abstract, other ones a bit more concrete. It's fun, and there's a lot to say right now. The world is totally fucked, so.
In the sort of journey of creating these songs, did they always take the direction that you expected, or did you find yourself in different places, having gone from the sort of original genius of the idea?
So the idea wasn't like, we're going to make this album like this. It was kind of like after the third or fourth song we had done, we were like, this is kind of where we're going. So, and that's usually how the record thing is for me, where you start to write some tunes and then you kind of write it out to where it's going to end up. Yeah, we just kind of followed where it was going. Usually that's the right way to do it.
And even sort of with, you said you wanted to make an album that was sort of timeless, but I'd also maybe consider it as quite timely given the state of affairs, particularly over your way. Even with these more somber themes, you've made it by and large a kind of a feel-good record, at least sonically. It's warm and it's anthemic at points. What were some of the records inspiring you when you were making this album?
Yeah, well, I love the idea that you don't have to have something be kind of sad and heavy to say something. A lot of music I love, it can be like celebrating what you want the world to be like, or calling things out, or even screaming things out, whatever that is. And there's definitely a time and a place for a somber song that is saying something, but I didn't feel like that didn't feel like what we wanted to do. We wanted to kind of have something be kind of up, and when it wasn't up, have it be kind of in an interesting place that was a bit more drawing you in a musical way, that was coming from a slightly different place than like a folky thing, or a protest folky kind of a thing. And not all the songs are about, a heavy topic. There's some other kind of more party songs on it too. There's another California song is a sarcastic wink at California tropes. There's some other stuff in there too. And yeah, instead of writing a song that's talking about how, a sad song about how it's hard for people to live in America financially, and everything that goes along with that, we were like, let's write a song where we fall in love with the shoplifter and we're on the shoplifter's side, and we want to run away with them, and it's like a kind of a love song that's like an up pop love song for the shoplifter. I just think yeah, it's fun to think of different ways to kind of tackle things, but to answer your question, big fan of like classic stuff like Forever Changes and
Great record.
you know, Australian themed record Arthur, the Kinks.
Oh, sure.
Love that record.
Yeah.
Just these kind of epic, pretty things. SF Sorrow and Parachute. Like I'm such a sucker for these kind of epic rock records. Smile, Beach Boys,
Yeah.
some Neil Young stuff. I feel like those are just classics, and it was fun to try to dip into that world. I think it's pretty much impossible to do that, but we dipped our toes just like this much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny you mentioned like Parachute by the Pretty Things. That's a record that I don't hear spoken about a lot. But now that I think about that album and think about Possession, like I can see the overlap. I can see the that same warmth. It kind of it carries itself with a similar posture, I suppose. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's cool.
man, I love that record so much.
Man, me too. It's like you've got that great
Big
run, the
influence
good Mr. Square into like She Was Tall, She Was High.
Oh,
Yeah, it's so good.
the first three tunes on that one are just
Crazy.
the best.
Yeah. Well, on the note of Australia, you're here pretty soon, and you've had this record with you on the road for the latter half of last year, and I suppose the early days of this year. I'm not sure if you've been touring so far in 2026, but what's the response been like from a live audience?
I think it's been good. Yeah, I mean, we kind of the set list right now is very like much a bit of everything. So, it's all over the place. It's not like we're playing most of Possession and then a handful of old songs. It's very much like a bit of everything, which is fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, the first time the only time I've seen you play was when you were here in Sydney last with the Freedom Band. What can we expect from this tour?
Well, it's pretty much the same band except the drummer now is Evan Burrows. He's from this band Wand. He's a great drummer. So, we have a different vibe. Evan brings a lot to the table, but just, it's rock and roll, loud rock and roll,
Awesome. One last question from me, Ty. I ask this of everybody that I interview, but if you could play me any album, what would you play me?
What's the context?
An album that you feel is of personal significance to you, but also has a universality that it would speak to everybody.
I mean, okay, so one would be Forever Changes, the Love record.
What do you like about it?
The deepness of it, the never-ending world of it, and I also think it's really poignant, really, really affecting. I would say I would want to play Chocolate Soup for Diabetics, because I feel like maybe you haven't heard that.
I actually don't know that one. Who's that by?
It's a compilation.
Okay.
It's like an old weirdo psych comp that's really great.
Sick. Is there a standout track on that comp that you think I should check out?
All of them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. You can just look up Chocolate Soup for Diabetics Volume 2. Volume
Okay.
2 is the one.
Okay. I'll check it out.
And then I would play you... This is tough, man. I don't know. I'm sure you've heard, like, early Alice Coltrane or something like that, huh?
Sure. Which album in particular? It doesn't have to
I'll
be
pick
something I haven't
something.
heard, by the way.
I'm gonna pick something else because I want it to be something you haven't heard.
Okay.
Even though you've probably heard "Forever Changes," obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what the hell am I gonna do here?
Well, I
This is
mean,
this is a problem.
it's I think it's a lot of people. A lot of people give me stone cold classics for this answer, so you don't have to. It doesn't have to be obscure necessarily. It just has to be something that speaks to you.
Sure. Have you heard Bill Fay?
Yeah, I have. He's great.
Okay. Yeah.
Love that Wilco
Damn.
cover he does.
Well, I'll throw "Time of the Last Persecution" in there.
Sick.
How about that?
Yeah, awesome. Ty, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I'm looking forward
Oh, thanks.
to catching your show when you're out here.
All right, man. Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you.